Hey, before we get into today's episode, I just want to take a moment to give you a heads up. This conversation deals with deeply sensitive topics, including men's mental health, suicide, and the recent tragedy involving the Selwood family. If that's something that may be triggering for you, please know that you can turn it off right now and you don't have to listen. And if you or someone you know needs support, you can always reach out on Lifeline on 13 11 14 or Beyond Blue on 1300 22 4636. You are not alone. Now, this episode wasn't planned to be what it turned into. We went into it to have a meaningful discussion about something that we're both passionate about, something in line with what we normally do on a podcast around a tough moment that's hit the footy community, and to be honest, many of us have got mates, colleagues or family battling through mental health challenges. But what happened during the chat surprised us. The conversation took a turn. It became personal, it became raw. We didn't land on any clear solutions and it wasn't tied up in a neat bow. In fact, it was far from that. We didn't even know how to finish it. What you're going to hear are just two blokes, two mates, trying to make sense of something that hurts and maybe saying out loud what a few of us are thinking. We've chosen to air it because we're tired of only reacting to tragedy with empathy and silence. We believe the only way to shift anything is to keep talking, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. So while this episode doesn't provide answers, what I hope it does offer is honesty. Thanks for listening. The Selwood family is a prominent name in the AFL world and the sporting world in Australia.
Four amazing, talented brothers that have played at the highest level in AFL and exceptionally well at it as well. Adam, Troy, Joel and Scott. Adam played for West Coast, Troy the Lions, Joel, Geelong, and Scott played for West Coast and Geelong. So it's a family that, on the outside at least, really close, played at the elite level, really supportive parented Bryce and Marie, achieved everything from a professional point of view, had successful careers outside of football, but yet clearly mental health doesn't discriminate, and it's had a terrible impact on their family where Troy sadly left the world on February this year, and then a few months later, just a few days ago from when we're recording this podcast, Adam left as well. By his age around 40, Adam marrying with a couple of kids, and clearly the demons and the things that impacts mental health took control.
I played cricket on the weekend. Everyone was across the story. Everyone, literally, when you know something is bubbling away and resonates with men. When you're on a cricket field and between overs, that was the conversation. I literally was having it. I'm the point and another guy is in the covers, and we're talking about how could these two young men who seemingly had everything end their own lives inside of, because the Selwood family are very well established as this amazing, beautiful family. So how can that ecosystem and that environment, how could we get to this situation? And to your point, it doesn't discriminate. A couple of good looking dudes, great families, great jobs, stellar career. I suppose the conversation is today, there's no one answer, but it's about hopefully, and we've seen it in our professional careers and just offering up maybe some insights. We're not mental health specialists by any means.
No, we're not.
But we have worked with people, unfortunately, that one scenario we'll talk about where ended in the worst possible way. So we're trying to use, I suppose, what is tragedy to hopefully open up some dialogue and conversations, whether it's professionally or personally, to hopefully end this in terms of the worst possible result, which is suicide.
Yeah. By starting to shine the light on and to start having the conversation, if at the very least, if anything, I hope that this podcast puts some thoughts in your head to look after yourself, but look out for each other as well. And already I see a bit of hope in your start there where you're talking about it was part of the conversation at cricket. I mean, there was a stage there where men just wouldn't even talk about it at all. So just the point that here's a group of men playing sport that felt comfortable enough to speak about the subject matter is a starting point. Is there a fix? No, but you can be absolutely part of reducing the impact, and that is really around starting a conversation. It clearly did at your footy club. You and I, over coffee this morning, same thing. It started conversations that started out at the Selwoods, but then it moved to both of us opening up about things.
But here, this would be my observation around it, because it's not the first time that we've seen an incident like this where you're having the conversation and I can't believe that this person has taken their own life, but it hasn't stepped beyond that, Mickey. So that's great. Yeah, that's awesome that we've opened up this conversation about a prickly topic that's really dark and everyone's empathetic to it. But of those 13 men that I was with yesterday, are any of them going to take the conversation further from it's a real tragedy to maybe talking about their own problems? And that's, to me, is the hump. Because I think we're getting really good at being empathetic, being emotional, being vulnerable around that's a tragedy. Because I'm actually sick of giving ourselves a pat on the back because we're having conversations about other people. But when are you going to have it about yourself? When are you going to engage with someone else and maybe find out if they're okay? And there's days that we dedicate to it. I get it. Still, the conversation is not where it needs to be. And that's about you. That's about friends, and genuinely and really meaningfully finding out, how are you? We've got Are You Okay Day. I just don't think it's enough, mate.
We can't rely on one day on a calendar of a year to try and think that it's going to help improve men's mental health or checking in. And you want it to become a part of your own makeup. And I guess it's starting from, you don't want to be left in that situation where you feel that's the only choice. But surely if you think about those that are close to you, do you want that someone that you really care about to be in that situation where they go, we feel this is the only choice out in life? And it's not about solving the world's problems, but it is about, to your point, taking it that one step further to go, well, what can I do? What's within my control? And sometimes it's simply asking a question, are you okay?
Have you ever been there?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact,
so you've in your mind, that's been a possible. Let's go right to it. So Troy and Adam, you can only.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
The mindset, like to end up there, like what's in your head?
Now you got me going.
Like it's so hard. Like,
yeah. Thankfully, no, I haven't. Have I been in dark places? Yeah. Thankfully, not a lot in my life, but I have. I've lost mates to suicide myself. People I still think about today and think about, could I have been more present for them? I can't change that, so I've got to think about, those in front of me now. Yeah, that important to my life now. Whew.
this now is now real. these are the actual conversations that matter. I'm looking at their names and I just
Put yourself in their shoes. Have you ever actually felt that dark? Just imagine what that must be like.
I have.
Really?
Yep.
And I've been on that. You and I are mates for
It's
20 years.
And I was like in my teens, like thinking about it in your teens. So that's why I get emotional, because I know it's one thing to think it. It's another thing altogether, because I don't think I'm alone in thinking it. You look back on it now and you go, it's fucking ridiculous. Like, you had your whole life ahead of you, and just because you didn't have a couple of answers to some questions, which is, what's my career going to be? What am I going to do with my life? I look at my son and I go, fuck, if that's your biggest problem, like, mate, everything's going to be fine. I get emotional because I kind of have an inkling of what was going through their minds, so far beyond where my head is to actually get to a place where you do something with that information. Like, I can't even imagine it. It's a horrible place to sit there and thinking of that as a move that you could make that might make life better for you or everyone around you. But then what's going on in their heads to get to that place?
Don't always believe this on the surface of what's been played. Recently for me, I went away with a really close mate that I've known for 25 years, and we don't live in the same state, so we speak semi-regularly, but we're kind of an interesting relationship where we're probably at our best when we're face-to-face compared to when we're not, and that's not probably unusual for blokes. But it took a moment for us to be sitting on the rocks at the beach to open up, and it was the first time I'd heard for him. He's a guy that portrays himself as, she'll be right, Nate, everything's good. For him to open up and talk about his mental health and his demons, and I haven't heard him speak like that ever in our friendship. But it was me opening the opportunity for him to speak, and hearing him open up then and gave me the confidence to speak about what my life has been like in the last few months and open up. And it was amazing at the end of that hour that we'd spent just talking, seeing the weight off his shoulders. You can physically see it. And same for me. And it really changed, I guess, that time that we had for the next 3 days. And all it took was, how are you going? I could sense something, and it's easy to go, I just don't want to go there. But he's a mate. So I just probed a bit, and it took a couple of questions for him to really go there, but he did. It was an amazing moment for both of us, and that's all it takes sometimes.
There's still a bit of, she'll be right, mate. I think we need to be willing to get down and dirty. Like this is fucking difficult. Us getting emotional, and I almost feel like I might feel a bit guilty about this later on. What do you fucking, mate, I don't even know these guys. What are you fucking talking about?
Probably cleansing for us.
Like the Blokes in Mining podcast we're working with has opened my eyes up to the mental challenges. And Drew and Dave, and the first episode, so this is that there's guys that we're working with who work out in the mines, who do a FIFO job, and there's some salt of the earth hard men out there. You got to be tough, you got to be rough, and they talk openly about it on the podcast. And you hear from Dave and Drew, who live it and breathe it every day. There's still a massive issue out there with blokes not opening up, and that industry. Your dad, he's in that industry. The amount of mental health issues and suicide that happens out there is huge.
It's the reason why you and I were really passionate around working with Drew and Dave on Blokes and Mining, because mental health is something that you and I have seen as something really important that we want to contribute to, improving. And so when they came to us and said, we don't just want to do a podcast around Blokes and Mining, we want to go deeper than that. We want to have many conversations with mental health because we live and breathe it. We see it all the time, and we see what the corporate version of that is, in their words, at times ticking boxes, that their words cover up at times. They want to be able to have real conversations. And I think that's wonderful that they are attempting to try and open people up. And again, it's not about always solving it, but it's about starting. And to your point, not just asking a question to tick a box. It's just wonderful what they're doing.
Whether we like it or not, as men, we're just not great communicators. But he said something as simple as, hey, how are things going? Opening up the conversation to let them talk, because sometimes it might just be about getting stuff off your liver. It might not even be about having the problem solved. You know what it's like. Your mind starts to play tricks. Your mind starts to come up with scenarios and bullshit that doesn't really exist. But when you can actually have someone to bounce that off, and they can give you perspective rather than it ruminate, particularly in their industry where it's isolating, you're away from your family, you're working like a dog, 12 hours a day, you're exhausted, the mind. And that's where leaning into each other.
For any leaders out there, managers listening, is that you've got a responsibility and opportunity as well. I think, I think about when I first started, it was pretty rare the boss would have any conversations with you outside of work related. So at best you might get, how was your weekend? Which was a superfluous kind of question if there was no kind of substance to it. Where now we live in a world where, and rightfully so, there's an expectations on leaders and managers to know your people well, to understand body language, to understand what makes them tick, so you can pick up on signs. And I know through my career and time as a leader, that was really important for me to try and understand my people. And there were times where I could pick up someone's being a bit quieter than normal. And there was times where I was fortunate enough to be able to capture them at that time. And sometimes, you're right, all they need is an opportunity to vent or to get things off their chest. And that might be enough. At other times, I've had to put them through personal, privately, psychology sessions to help them. And you and I were also privy to a situation where I was acting general manager and you were working in the leadership role. Many of your careers where someone was going through some really tough times in their personal life and not handling it very well. That person's not with us anymore. And that was hard to see that unfold. And for me, I was even though I was an acting GM at the time, still fairly green in my leadership days. And geez, that was an interesting time to try and navigate that, to be there for them, to see what was going on, the destruction, and then the worst case scenario.
That's about 10 years ago now, that one. 10 years ago. I remember it like it's yesterday. And this particular person, I'd worked with them in a couple of markets, alpha male, but this person is indestructible. They came from a sporting pedigree. They were the center of a conversation. They held their own. They're a high performance person, and to watch them. And I remember we had an inkling of it, and you start thinking, what more could I have done? Because he presented himself as someone who was really strong. He didn't need my help. I remember the day that he drove into that car park, and he didn't come up from that car park for 30 minutes. And then he came up from the car park and he was disheveled. Something wasn't right. And I went over to him to, as I always do, he was pissed. Drunk. 9:30 in the morning. I remember calling you, and then we put him in that room and I stood guard. So he organised to get him home. We went through all that process, and then we went down to his car. Do you remember his car? I remember seeing the dents in the car. I remember seeing the kids' seat, and I knew that he had the kids on the weekend and it was Monday. Going through his car and then opening up that glove box, and there was that towel in there, and the towel was covering a vodka bottle, and the vodka bottle was empty. And there was no Coke or anything in there. It clearly been down and drinking straight out of the bottle. And from that moment, it took a week, and he was in ICU, and then he was dead. I remember going to ICU with a GM, and I'll never go to ICU again. Never again. Never again.
I remember you coming back, and I don't think I've ever seen you like that. You're someone, again, you present typically very strong resilience, and our
GM, he was amazing, man. I watched him, and it's like we need more men like that. The way he handled me, the way he handled him, spoke to him like he was still there, and I'm looking at him going, who's this? This is not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a minute. Just a minute. And then you do his funeral, and his family's there and his kids.
You wish in those moments that they could still be there just to see that, to see the love. There was hundreds of people at his funeral, hundreds of people that were there with pouring of love and care and support. And yet, this is the case so many times. It's that they can't see through the darkness there to see the love that's there. And this is not about blame, but it is about going, you might be the difference in a friend's life by just asking a question, checking in.
Gus Wallen, he got you for life. So I remember at the beginning, he did a conference call with us, and he said, everyone on this call right now, text a mate and say, just want to say I love you. And it was a bit more to it, but it was quite confronting to send. I love the work that he does, and he's campaigning that so hard. And I also think back in our media career, and Sean Goff, shout out, also Mike Fitzpatrick. No Talk Day actually promoted stories of saving people's lives. And I think there needs to be more of that. So if men hear more conversations about those who are willing to have those chats and have saved a mate's life, maybe those need to be promoted more. So we're not just talking about tragedies like Troy and Adam Selwood, and we're talking about the success stories.
We don't work for that company, and also we've got no ulterior motive here, but that still is on today. And it, to me, was probably one of the most important and proud things to be a part of. A media company that knew that they had a voice, they could make a difference. And to be clear, the company lost money every year because on that day, they have no advertising.
Yep.
So they're losing money there, but for the greater good. And the whole idea was, we're not going to talk to allow you the opportunity to talk to a mate. And internally for staff, there's amazing things. They'd have psychologists in building for staff. They would encourage open forum conversations. So there was internal benefit. It wasn't just outward facing to the audience. There was always a charity message. There was, and the feedback year on year grows stronger around that day started a conversation that saved one of my mates, or it saved me, or it saved my husband. It means my husband's still here today.
But there's got to be more than one day, Nicky.
Every day.
Every day. Whilst Troy and Adam are a story because of profile, who in your circle could be the statistic tomorrow?
Think about who is it in your life that you can reach out to today.
Do what Gus gave us that day and write that text us on right now. Think of someone just checking in, just want to know, I love you, I'm here for you. If you need me at any time, just call. Love you, mate.
Understand that there's people in your life that will listen. And it's also okay for you to not be okay and to tap on your mates on the shoulder and say, hey, got 5 minutes? Or to anyone that you feel that you can open up to. And it might feel hard, but you know what? The best things in life are worth fighting for. The best things in life don't come easy. Start a conversation with a mate that might be enough just to ease your mind just a little bit to get you through to that professional help. So yeah, if you're there in a dark place, you too can pick up the phone. Don't wait for it to ring. We are encouraging you to reach out to someone, but you too can reach just whoever it is. Who was the last person you spoke to? Ring them back. Hey, have you got 5 minutes? I need to talk to you. You might be surprised on how willing to listen they are.
Thanks again for listening. If today's episode has brought up anything for you, please reach out. You can call Lifeline on 13 11 14 or Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36. Take care of yourself. Check in on your mates. We'll see you next time.